Hello and welcome to the Disruptive Author. We have a special guest this month for this particular issue 10, that we normally just have the one interview. We have our cover interview, but this month we decided to throw in an extra, a very interesting guest, Simone Feiler. Welcome, Simone.
Hi, Deb. How are you going?
Good. How are you going, more to the point?
I'm very well, thank you. Very busy with the end of year. Just had my twins finish grade 12, went to schoolies and picked up a cold. So I've been struggling through that one.
Not COVID, I hope?
No, I've had the test, thankfully. That would be dire.
Yeah. So Simone, this is really interesting. This is really exciting for those that are listening, because Simone is a specialist in audiobook production. And that's why we decided to throw in this extra this month, because for authors, I think audiobooks is definitely the way of the future. And I thought it would be really interesting to invite you along, Simone, and just find out from you, what do authors need to do? How do they go about creating an audiobook? So let's just start with, just tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to be doing what you're doing today.
Well, basically, I started in radio at 16. So when I was young, I sort of was a bit of a rebel at school. I was in various bands. I played guitar and I wanted to be a rock star. And I did work experience through school. And the closest thing, I guess, to the music industry was the radio industry. So I did work experience there, and then hassled them to death until I got a kind of a semi or part-time job when I was still at school. So I used to do mid-dawns once I got in there. I did a lot of groundwork before that happened, but Friday, Saturday and Sunday night mid-dawns while I was still in grade 12. So for the next 35 years, my background was radio. I did everything in the industry because I worked quite a few regional stations, from production, announcing, music directing, up to program directing, and I absolutely loved that job. And then a lot of things happened. I eventually had children and wanted to work from home. So I kind of had a music room and started doing in-store radio, which I broadcast through Drake's, IGA, news agencies nationwide. So I still do that. I've been doing that since 2011. But then I started doing some local shifts, because once radio's in your blood, it's really hard to get out. So I was doing community stations just to give back. And my sponsor was a local publishing house. And one of the guys there said, "Can you make audiobooks?" And I was like, yeah, I could probably make an audiobook. And he already had a few people lined up. So that's pretty much where it all started.
That is so exciting and great. I mean, I just love audiobooks for me. I've always been an avid reader, but a few years back, I would start reading and I just would want to go to sleep. And it's awful. It's tragic, because, reading is something that's so important to me. But then I discovered audiobooks. And I can multitask. I can be listening to a book and doing the washing, cooking, cleaning, vacuuming, all sorts of things, driving.
Exercising, gardening. I know, they're so convenient. Yeah.
So cool. So tell me, what is your typical client? Would your typical client be non-fiction or fiction?
I've had probably mostly non-fiction, but I also have had a few people read their stories to me in the fiction genre, crime mainly. But yeah, I would definitely say non-fiction, self-help, that genre is the biggest. So
awesome. So it's a really fast-growing industry, fast-growing market.
Definitely.
Have you sort of looked at the statistics, as to just what the growth percentage is, and the people that are taking up audiobooks? Is it outstripping print books, for example, which is the biggest market to date?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have heard that it is outstripping print, but there's two schools of thought there. There's a lot of people that still love to read, particularly in the younger generation. Audiobooks is certainly outstripping it because of the ease of being able to multitask. They can do other things.
Access,
particularly under 35s are certainly turning to audiobooks more. I would recommend to any author, if they're going to release something, they do it print, ebook, and definitely audio, because you're going to pick up a bigger audience, that audience that listens to audiobooks. So
I have a priority. I listen to the book first. If I really, really like it, I'll get the ebook.
Right.
And if I really, really, really like it, I'll get the print book as well. And that, whereas, and that's probably been opposite to my experience as a publisher, when it comes to actually selling books, most people prefer the print book, which really surprised me. But so I like to have all three. I like to have access. I like to be able to have the visual.
That's cool.
But be able to listen. So I guess it depends on the information that's in it as to whether I'm going to get something in writing as well as the audio. But audio is definitely first preference.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think a lot of people are just, used to reading, and particularly, the boomers and Generation X. We grew up with reading books. So, and it's also good to read books because you get some downtime, We were getting so busy, then COVID hit, but I really feel like we're getting busy again. So that's why audiobooks, I think, is on the increase because of our busy lifestyles. But, it's good to turn to print so you get to lie down or sit down and actually chill out and relax. So that's why I think print is still good. But for a busy lifestyle, definitely, for the author, if you want to reach that market that doesn't have time to sit down, you want to go to an audiobook.
Yeah. And, think about even beyond the boomers, like I'm right on that cusp there between Gen X and the boomers, and just love my books. But just the generation before, they used to listen to the radio.
Yeah, that's right.
My husband and I go camping now, and we will grab an audiobook and listen to it, good Aussie one usually, with the Aussie accents and things.
Awesome.
We appreciate, especially if it's a murder mystery or something.
Yeah.
It's just like going back to those old days, being able to access but not having the visual.
Yeah.
So tell me what's involved in creating an audiobook. What's the actual process, and what does that mean in terms of the author's time investment and money investment?
Okay. Well, the process basically is the author coming into me, this is my studio, and reading their manuscripts. So basically, and you read your manuscript as it is, pretty much. Okay. We omit a few things, like the contents table gets taken out. And so we have a recording session. Basically, I do 3-hour sessions because it's a fairly grueling task, high concentration. You need a lot of energy, obviously. After 3 hours, you kind of start getting fatigued. I do as well. So we basically tee up. Well, I'll give you an estimate of how long it's going to take you to record your book, and then you come in consecutive days, 3-hour sessions. I will maybe push that out to 4 hours, depending on how the author feels. If they're up for doing a little bit longer, we can do that. I really want to give a relaxed kind of environment and atmosphere so that the author feels, really confident that they're going to deliver their best narration. Everyone feels nervous when they first come in, but within about 20 minutes, they're like, this is starting to feel good. And then by the end of it, they're like, I was born to do this.
Love it.
Yeah. So, and then once it's all recorded, and everybody makes mistakes, so don't come in thinking that you're going to make mistakes, because I've heard the very best reader and the very worst reader. And basically at the end of those audiobooks, they all thought this is magic, because, that's where the magic happens, in the editing. So
the editing,
So after that, you leave it in my editor's capable hands, and then we basically put it all together, and then it's ready for distribution. And then we upload it, and it can be available 40 plus global outlets, including Audible, iTunes, Google Play, you name it, you can have your audiobook there.
And so people can access it anywhere once you've uploaded it.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And you then generally you do take responsibility for doing that, for uploading it to those platforms?
Yeah, I upload it to the platforms and get it all set up. But once I've got it in there, I hand that over to the author. So I don't make any money from the sales of their book. I just get them into a position where they are able to distribute. So
you basically set their accounts up for them. And
correct.
Yeah. Awesome.
So the one I am in the process, and there's quite a few teething issues because I've really got to get this right, of creating my own distribution outlet called Audiobook Australia. Because the biggest problem I find with the major players is that you can't actually put your own recommended price on it. And
so they're still dictating.
So
Amazon's quite a big player in the ebook and print as well, and they do control a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, Amazon owns Audible, so it's the same. It's the same boat.
And Apple would be the same. They all have and same with Google. They all have their ways of managing, I guess, a certain portion of the market in terms of income.
Exactly. So I'm trying to work out a plan to combat that, so I can let the authors put their own recommended retail price and offer, I would like to, a higher percentage than what they get through, Amazon, etc.
And yet, so I guess that just from the publishing, with print, it actually doesn't matter whether you're on one of those bigger platforms or not. The point is that you market.
Yes.
And, whether you're on there or not, you have to market. So having a more user-friendly platform makes a lot of sense. Tell me, is it possible for an author to actually create their own audiobook? And I want to specifically talk here about quality, sound quality. What's your thoughts about people doing their own books for themselves?
Yeah, well, it's definitely possible. Ideally, you would have a fairly quiet room. You'd have a good microphone so that you can't hear the kids in the background or the cars going past or the dog barking and whatnot.
Bird outside the window.
Yeah, excuse me, because that detracts, obviously, from... But I have recorded people remotely, so... it can be done, preferably if you've got a better, a fairly soundproof environment. So I'm going to have to cough. I'm sorry.
You're right. So we had a chat recently with one of the local radio stations at Caboolture, and they have a podcasting room.
Right.
So I actually had a chat with them about authors being able to go and rent the room to do their own.
That's perfect.
So if they did something like that, they would then send it to you to do the editing. Is that how that would work?
Exactly.
And does that make your job harder and longer if they do it themselves like that?
Potentially, yes, because it depends on the room. It really depends on the room. If you can get a good quality room that's quiet, and I just prefer to leave the tape running rather than stop it and start it, then it's probably the same as coming in here. But if they're going to record it on their phone in a cupboard, then, that's where you run into, higher costs and more time. Yeah. So, but if you've got a room in a radio station, then that would be perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm sort of thinking is either way, it's going to cost you. And there is an investment, obviously, in time. It's going to at least cost you the amount of time it takes to read through your book.
Yeah, that's right. And then editing takes 2 hours for every hour recorded.
That's great information. Yeah. So keeping that in mind, I think authors just need to realise if they're going to do this, they just need to put some money and time aside and make the decision to make that investment.
That's right.
And I think it certainly would be worth it. So, and I know we have Marnie Perner, who actually introduced us. There's a few other people that you've worked with as well that I know. And they just rave about the process.
That's wonderful to hear. Yeah, well, that's my aim. I want... one of the most important things about audiobooks, particularly non-fiction, like all genres, if the author's reading it, it's there in their voice, and once it's in that cloud, it's there for generations. Your kids can hear you read that book. And I think from my end, that's one of the most important things that I encourage the authors to self-narrate. You know, why get someone else to read your work? If you can read it, I can help you read it convincingly, that it's going to sound magic. And yeah, it's going to be a legacy that, I mean, I would love, wouldn't you love as well to hear your great-great-great-great-grandmother, narrate
totally.
it? That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So I think
beautiful connection.
Yeah, that's a wonderful legacy that people can leave for their generations. And also with self-help books, you know your topic so well that it's just convincing the listener that you actually do know what you're talking about, and probably enticing them to come and see you. It would make a difference, I guess, if someone else read your book and then they came to see you and think, oh, you don't sound like the person that read that book.
No, there's something's missing there. Yeah, so we had a bit of a chat about that earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
The potential in reading your own book of actually growing that connection you have with your reader.
Absolutely.
And it's I think it's important even just to say this here, with self-help books in particular and nonfiction, predominantly your money does not come from book sales. Your money comes from the business that you generate from your book.
Yep.
So building trust, using your book to build trust, and using your voice to build your connection and build the relationship with your reader. It's a wonderful opportunity that if you can do it, then yes, certainly would encourage people to use their voice rather 100%. Than using someone else's.
Yeah.
But using someone else's is an option, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a selection, obviously, with my radio background of voice artists that are very good at their craft, that can bring anything to life, male, female. They've got accents, any accent you like, different age groups. So we certainly can cater for anybody that really doesn't feel confident in reading their book. But again, I would suggest that you read your own book.
Yes, totally, and use the studio of some sort, if not definitely. Yours. Which brings me back to something else that we discussed at another point as well, and that is that quality. Like we're recording this now on Zoom.
That's right.
And probably would be completely different had I come into the studio and we'd done it in there. I guess it would sound completely different.
100%. So, not necessarily if we record the podcast here, because my room is fairly open. So to record the audiobooks, I've got a booth. So the author goes in the booth, and that's a dead room. So there's lots of soundproofing in there, and it really brings it so you can just hear the author's voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So no competition.
Yeah, and there's nothing in there. There's no other sound. There's just you and the author, and it's really close and intimate. And yeah, there's a connection there. Whereas in my studio, there's a little bit of bounce, so it sounds a little bit, you can probably hear it, not so clearly as if I was recording straight into my computer, but yeah, Zoom's probably a little bit even, more.
less quality. So yeah, and probably too, like you've probably got the microphones, like I'm speaking into my iMac microphone, I'm hearing through my earbuds.
Yeah.
So you've got a little loop happening there.
Yeah.
So you can probably hear the dog snoring. And...
I can't hear that. No.
Oh, you can't? Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
He's not beside me. And
is he? Can you hear him?
Noisy. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I have got this cold. Maybe my ears are blocked a bit. It's lucky I'm not recording at the moment.
Oh, poor darling.
But I've got I love Rode microphones, so I use Rode, and I really like to qualify that when the author walks out of there, they listen back to their book, they're really happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose there's probably a process of them getting used to the sound of their voice too.
Yeah, everyone comes in.
For granted now. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone comes in. I hate the sound of my voice.
Yeah, until you hear it quite a bit, and once you get used to it.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's self-judgmental. So, but yeah, after a few hours in the booth, or even after, like I said, 20 minutes, you really start feeling like, yeah, this is good. I feel comfortable. I like to encourage authors when they come in just to, pretend I'm not here, or read the book to me. That's another thing when you're narrating your book. you're not reading it to a mass audience. Everybody that listens, it listens intimately. So you're only really reading it to one person. So you've got to have that client that you're thinking that your self-help book's going to help, or, and really concentrate on who that person might be, and think of them in your mind when you're delivering your narration.
It's exactly what I say when I talk about writing. Write to that person. Pick one person, write to them, as opposed to writing for them or for an audience.
Exactly.
Just write as if you're writing to them personally.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's my belief as well.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
All right. So is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you think authors need to know?
I just think if you're considering an audiobook and you just think, oh, it's too hard or it's too scary, it's definitely not too scary or too hard. I can help you. Like Deb suggested, there's probably studios in your local area that, are recording podcasts or whatever, that you can go in there and record and send it to me to clean up and make into a beautiful audiobook. If you're in Melbourne, actually, I've got a new studio just opened in Melbourne Audiobook Production. So Les is my guy down there. He can help you record and produce your audiobook in Melbourne. But yeah, just think of that potential audience that don't have the time to sit down and read a book. You'll be tapping into a bigger audience if you go to audio.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's good fun recording your audiobook. You can get to come and hang out with me.
And actually, just the little bit of time we've spent together so far, I can highly recommend it.
Oh,
so you are good fun, and you are that bit of a rebel, which is still you may have matured a little and settled down, we'll say. But I can definitely see that rebel in there, which
that's good to know.
Fun.
I won't tell my kids.
So, no, you don't want them to know. How can authors connect with you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, you can check out my website, brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com, and go to the contacts page. You can see other authors that I've interviewed. I also do podcasts with my authors after we've recorded the audiobook. So that gives them something to share and talk about how they, decided to write the book and whatever questions
the
come out with that.
Was for them.
Yeah. Or you can email me at brisbaneaudiobookproduction@gmail.com.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure this is going to help a number of people, and I guess the thing will be being able to fit them in the new year.
Yeah, well, I'm fairly busy most of the time. There could be a few weeks, month or two wait, but the quicker you get in contact with me, then the quicker I can schedule you in to do it. So
yeah, awesome. That's good tip.
But
Thank you, darling.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, you too, Deb.
All good.
Thank you so much.
Great service that you're offering. So
thank you. I appreciate it. You have a wonderful Christmas and a happy 2022. Let's hope things are really buzzing next year for everybody.
Everyone should be able to win, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah, awesome. Lovely to talk to you, darling.
You too, Deb. Thanks so much.